Well, a very, very happy Tuesday and welcome to another episode of the TNC Sports Talk. My name is Justin. Today is September 16th of 2025. And on today's episode, we got a little bit of something for you in all kinds of sports. We'll cover the Cincinnati Bengals as they advance to week 3, 2-0 under the record. I think we got to give a round of applause. I don't know how they do it. And they did not make it look pretty. It was come from behind. But we have a lot to talk about moving forward with the Bengals and possibly how their season may look with Joe Burrow missing up to 12 weeks minimum with a turf toe surgery that we will have later on this week. So we'll talk about that. The Cincinnati Bengals, man, I got to say, I don't even know where to stand half the time, right? I mean, it felt like last weekend we were cutting them out of the playoffs. And then now, heading into the weekend, all right, we're back in. We're 2 games. It's a do or die in a 3-game series that we should have beaten the Athletics, and we get swept. And I'm like, all right, well, that's it. Our season's done. It comes down to like, man, they're tearing, right? They're 1 foot in, 1 foot. Should I go? Are we in the postseason now? Are we not? I mean, what's going on? They're just tearing. And, unfortunate news that if you just tear around 500 baseball, it's not enough to make it into the postseason. And they're honestly right now jeopardizing with the 4 series that they have left. They already beat the Cardinals last night. They have 2 more games against the Cardinals. But with the games that they have left, they're jeopardizing playing even 500 baseball. Right? So, I just want to pull my head out here. You see the ball spark that I'm starting to get. This is me being at 30 years old. I don't know what to do right now. And then we are actually going to kick things off with some professional wrestling as WWE made a huge announcement back over the weekend. So we'll start off with that. But before we do, just like always, let's go ahead and just dive into our channel. Let me get you up to date with anything that you're missing, everything that you can expect to come on this weekend. I want to start off in our WWE 2K Universe mode. I just published the Raw that was supposed to be published last night. I'm going to be honest with you guys. I've been having a brain fart ever since coming back from that trip a few weeks ago. My creative thinking hasn't been quite there. And I don't know. I don't know if it's because what's going on at the point that we're at in the universe mode storytelling or if it's something else. But I'm just struggling to get story modes going. We have the draft that I've had it for a couple weeks leading up to the upcoming PLE, which is going to be King and Queen of the Ring. I want to say that's in about 3 weeks. We also have the King and the Queen of the Ring tournament. That round 1 is wrapping up. So it helps me. The tournament right now is helping me for match content because I got 2 females, 2 males matches going on Raw and SmackDown and kind of like just where do I plug them in at? So we have that. And then we have NXT Spring Break-In, which I think only have like 3, maybe 4 matches already booked. So I got to work on some of that. And so I'm not behind, but at the beginning of the week, I just struggle to get going when it comes down to our shows. So I missed out yesterday. I had the content played. I just didn't have any of it put together. I've been struggling all day today just to get going. It's just kind of been one of those weeks getting off to a bad start. The good news is out of it, right? I mean, I have all my shorts, YouTube shorts published. Um, I have all the last week matches I wanted to publish. I have those published now. So I'm just working on content this week. But we can expect NXT tomorrow night, SmackDown, as the final matches for the first round of the King and Queen of the Ring tournament will take place. We will also have main event the next night, and then spring break in this Sunday. So, if I don't finish anything today, I got to really get cracking on that. In our Major League Baseball franchise mode series, I'm not playing with this particular team. I was only going to cut back to 3 games, but with how the playoffs and whatnot is kind of getting underway, and I'm working on getting those published too. I have a doubleheader coming to you guys later on this afternoon. Seattle Mariners and the Kansas City Royals will hopefully be published by 7:40 Eastern Standard Time. That is, again, I actually just have that wrapped up here, finished downloading or importing. So I should be able, once I get off of this podcast today, should be able to have that published up on our channel. I'll get this published, and then I'll get the second one, because the second one is at 10 o'clock, and that'll be the Phillies and the Dodgers, the battle of the NL National League best record. I believe the Dodgers have like 102 or 103, and the Phillies have 100. So that will be our doubleheader for tonight. We'll have Friday and Saturday, I believe, or Saturday and Sunday, Milwaukee and St. Louis on Saturday, and on Sunday we'll have Seattle and Houston, all afternoon games there. Like I said, we're about 2 weeks away before the end of the season. So it's, finish this week, jump on, maybe it's going to be a short week next week. I don't know. And then just jump on, maybe it's going to be a particular season. I'm going to have to take a look at that. So wrap up next week and then start our playoffs. So there's a lot of work cut out for me here this week. And in our Madden series, week 3, we'll kick things off Thursday Night Football, Miami and Buffalo. Then we have the Bengals and Vikings at 1 o'clock, followed by Sunday Night Football game this week, Kansas City Chiefs and the New York Giants, followed by the Detroit Lions and the Baltimore Ravens on Monday night. So a lot of content available for you in a little bit of every category if you guys are liking to watch our gaming. And I want to kind of just hop over to our channel for a second and just give a big shout out. I have grown to this channel so much, but I'm going through the videos besides today. I know last night was a late night football game, but you have 11 views. Week 2 Sunday night football game between the Falcons and the Vikings had 718 views. The Bengals game earlier that day had 72. Red Sox had 50. The Dodgers and Giants had 27. Keep on scrolling, so bear with me because I want to get to Thursday night. 51 for the Packers and the Commanders. We jump one of our wrestling one. The Backlash, just the match itself for the WWE Women's Championship, it was Zoe Starks versus Rhea Ripley. It had 541. 149 for the Women's World Championship. Dive into this. We had 133 for last week's Monday Night Football game. 117 for the Bengals. So my point is that, listen, I get it's football season. I want to say thank you. I appreciate the support, of you guys viewing the channel, whether it's the podcast and you guys are listening to us, because I know we have daily listeners, or if it's on one of our gaming channels. Earlier this year, I thought about extending our content play. The work just piled up, unfortunately, so I didn't. But I'm sticking with what I got. I know it's not a lot. I know it's a lot of AI content and CPU versus CPU, but I do appreciate the support and people watching our channel. So thank you. I'd like to say that. So, but yeah, our channel's thriving. Appreciate everyone tuning in. Take this time, if you guys haven't done so already, hit that like, share, and subscribe button for more content. Have those notifications on so you don't miss episodes like these on our weekly basis. So, man, it seems to me that a lot of things are happening as soon as we sign off. And I was trying to figure out where to go with this channel, what took priority, and I only felt that this came of a nuisance to take the lead up spot here in our conversations. And that is, we're going to begin talking about the groundbreaking news that WWE announced. Paul Levesque, Hunter Hearst Helmsley, Triple H, announced over this past weekend. Now, I'm not surprised about this, but I think when you finally see the next steps being taken, kind of just cringes as a fan, and nothing that WWE is doing wrong in this particular matter. It's what they feel is best for business, and their business is to expand globally. You've heard this said thousands of times through Paul Levesque that this is a global phenomenon. That we're not just restricted to the States. And early throughout this year, we've seen a lot of international events, which has led to some of our PLEs going across seas. And, I get it. Maybe not everyone's on the same page and are okay with it, but I have to side on both sides. And when I look at it, I think if it brings in money, it brings in revenue, then we got to give it a shot. Just a few years ago, we were talking about the WWE possibly going belly up with the negative decisions that they continue to make. And for me, over the last few years, WWE has become a product that I enjoy watching more so than AEW. They've broke down that forbidden door that we've talked about, that AEW kind of started presenting on television, and so it's kind of the adapt or die scenario. And the US is changing, the economy is changing. You can tell by the lack of sold out arenas or stadiums that the WWE receives in the feedback that they get for these events. And one of the ongoing deals that they made almost a decade ago was an agreement with Saudi Arabia. I remember that agreement when that was first released, and I was just thinking to myself, I was talking with my dad, and I was like, man, and he was just it's like they're paying a pretty penny probably to keep WWE relevant and going and covering maybe their less expenses. And I know in the last couple of weeks, with WrestlePalooza coming up this weekend, it going over to ESPN, you got to have a subscription service for it. I think the minimum is $29.99. And we've talked here last week just alone how this it's all about business. we've received we have received WWE content beyond means and stretches, for a reasonable price. $6.99 here, $9.99 there, $14.99 here is not a lot when you could add it up. If the only recommendation I could give the WWE in this matter is to go just find one source again where we could watch all the content, not have to jump through Netflix, Peacock, ESPN, WWE Network, whatever the case may be. Just find that one source that we can call home when it comes down to all WWE content. I don't mind paying $20, $30 a month for that one service. It's when you have me, all right, I got to pay $29.99 a month for ESPN, which I'm honestly only going to watch wrestling off of it. But then you're going to have me go to Netflix and pay 12, 14 bucks a month for just Monday Night Raw once a week. And then, you got to have a television service, which is, at least 60, if not more, that covers USA Network. To get SmackDown, you got to have television service for CW and NXT. You don't have to have a YouTube subscription for the AAA, but, NXT is doing a lot of collaboration with Impact. So if you want to keep up with that story, you got to have Fight TV, I think, FITE, for Impact. That's the last source I saw them on. And, so it does add up. So I do wish that if, at some point WWE can just kind of come together with one source of subscription that we could all go to and enjoy. But without that being said, WWE announced this past weekend that they will be holding WrestleMania 43 in 2027 in Saudi Arabia, part of their international series schedule of that year. They had The Undertaker, they had Charlotte Flair, they had Liv Morgan, Logan Paul, all part behind the scenes to watch, to be part of this announcement. And so I started off with my statement here to begin with, because it's true. WWE is going to Saudi Arabia. We as fans may not like it. I know I do feel this in a way. Nothing personal with the Saudi Arabia stuff, but we've seen things happen in Saudi Arabia when it came down to PLEs in the past that just didn't turn well. Couple of negative impacts. And I'm talking, and the things that instantly jumped to my mind were the stories about people, certain wrestlers and athletes and personnel not able to get back home right after an event. We've had stories, we've seen it ourselves where Goldberg and Taker didn't have a great match. We've seen it ourselves where, DX and Brothers of Destruction failed to deliver the match that we all probably wanted to see in their prime. With those negativities, and those do weigh a lot more than the positives coming out of Saudi Arabia, it does create an eerie feeling hosting a WrestleMania there. We also know about their rules, their laws, and how females have to. There are certain dress codes that they have to apply by. And usually WrestleMania is a time where people, men and women, express themselves with crazy entrances, personal music, special wardrobes, etc., etc. And so, there's plenty of reasons that can steer, and I'm probably not even scratching that surface there of the reasons why maybe fans could be unacceptable of this deal. But like you said, you got to go back to what's best for business. Let's face it, WrestleMania is not a one night, it's a two night, and who knows what's going to be in a couple years when they go to Saudi Arabia. But you can't sit here and tell me that WWE has sold out one night, nonetheless, two nights of WrestleMania in the last 5 years since the pandemic, um, for the good of the company. I just don't know. I fail to see the attendance here. And for the past, what, 42 years, because next year is going to be back in Vegas, we're going to see the WWE, we've seen the WWE either in the States or up in Canada. It's been a reasonable drive. It's been, it's been a week-long extravaganza. People will come out. People on the other side of the country would come out to these venues and take part all week long. Just imagine the struggles you would have to go get, not only get the tickets, get the hotel, you're playing for a travel expense across seas, international. You'd have to get a passport. Hopefully there's no hiccups along the way. Now, obviously, this isn't the same thing that what I'm just talking about. There is that sense of being in Saudi Arabia. What does the atmosphere look like? And one of my concerns is I guess, or questions to be asking in details as we hopefully learn more over the next several years, is there any outside access for WrestleMania? And what does those tickets look like? Or is this WrestleMania strictly directed towards Saudi Arabia and the country? Normally when you watch a PLE or an event in Saudi Arabia, they're outside the city. There, it's all of them coming together. So my question is that when we hold a WrestleMania here, we open tickets to anyone and everyone who can get their hands on a ticket to WrestleMania could attend a WrestleMania. It's not restricted to, no Chinese, no Vietnamese, there's no fine line of who we cannot sell tickets to. Once they go out, they go out. So I'm interested and intrigued to see the dynamic of where WrestleMania 43 and how it unfolds in Saudi Arabia would take place. But we've came a long way, and I think that's important to highlight. This could start something even more than what we already see, and that is WWE going global. This is one of the many steps of going global, and it is an adapt or die situation. So if you do not, we may not like it. I'm going to be honest with you. I don't think anyone there making the announcements, a part of that event last weekend, liked the idea. I didn't see smiles or enthusiasm coming from Paul Levesque. It was almost as if he wasn't announcing a death of a WWE superstar. It was almost as if, he was being forced against his will to say this. And, I don't know that precisely. It's just, that's what the vibe came off when I watched this, this little announcement being made. It felt like people, looked disgusted. It looked like they didn't seem interested. And whether that's the case or not, I don't know. But the bottom line is, at least as of right now, as of this past weekend, Triple H and the WWE TKO is going to Saudi Arabia for WrestleMania. And so buckle up, because things are always transpiring here in the WWE. All right. So go ahead and we'll move on. I want to talk some baseball with you guys here today. Because like I said, those, we got four. Look, we got less than 4 series away from the postseason starting. 2 weeks from today, from this podcast, we'll be talking postseason. We'll be talking that the divisions will be set, the wild cards will be set, and we're in October baseball. Believe it or not, within a month, we'll find out. From then, we will find out who's your World Series champions. And the race is heating up. And I love competitiveness. It becomes, a matter of fact, the amount of competitive and situations and storylines and this and this has to happen in order for that team to make it to the postseason. It gets crazy. It gets crazy. It gets crazy. It gets crazy. I can't say it enough. And that's what makes the thrill of being a baseball fan or just a sports fan exciting to watch at this time. No, I don't follow basketball as closely, or no, I don't follow NHL closely. But when it comes down to the postseason or towards the end of the year, I kind of start tuning in after the beginning of the calendar year because that's when things heat up. In baseball today, though, as we sit here, we're seeing the Blue Jays. Let's take a look at the AL East, or the American League and overall. Blue Jays have the East right now. They have a 5-game lead above New York. The Red Sox 6 games back. Detroit has a 6.5-game lead in the Central over the Guardians. And Seattle currently has a 0.5-game lead over the Houston Texans. Or Houston Astros, excuse me. I'm getting my sports mixed up. The Texas Rangers are just 3.5 games back. So if we played today, postseason wise, that's how your divisions look. The Yankees have a 1.5-game lead over the wild card. Boston, a 0.5 game. Houston slides into that third spot. The Guardians and the Rangers are just 3 games out. And I say this with importance because we've seen the Reds do this a week ago. It was a week ago where they were about 4.5 games back. We were ready to call it quits. We were like, no more, no mas. Let's pack up. Let's just have a winning record at the end of the year and let's go home, call it a day. When we got to Thursday at the end of the week and we looked ahead into the athletic series, they're back at it. 2 games back. And it was our perfect opportunity to kind of say, all right, you take on and you could sweep the Athletics, which you should have, and we're disappointed they didn't. We could be right now on that 3rd seed out. Right? But this is the importance of this week. So you have Cleveland and Detroit because, 4 series goes by fast. I give you that. But a lot of things could happen in 4 series, and it could, 1 or even 2 series losses can find you outside looking in of a playoff race. So this is why I'm kind of tweeting Texas right now, over in Houston, taking on the Astros. You could sweep the Astros. You could find yourself just 1 game within swapping them. Cleveland Guardians could beat the Tigers right now. They could find themselves a little bit closer. All you need is another bad series from the Tigers, and you could find Cleveland in the conversation. The Yankees, the Red Sox, don't just settle for a wild card spot. Unless maybe you're the Padres, I wouldn't even say it. Maybe Cleveland, they're so close. The Yankees are 1.5 games. Boston's, half a game. You can't settle for anything less than trying to go for that division. It's kind of almost a do or die because when you're focused and you're trying to settle being so in tight with the wild card race right now, your priorities are going to be messed up, and your bad streak habit is going to transition into the wild card falling out. So I would honestly say for Boston, I mean, 6 games it seems pretty far, out of what the next 10, 11 games of the season. But, it's about going out there and just playing fundamental baseball. The Philadelphia Phillies have clinched their division, as I didn't even write down scores for the rest of the league or the division there. Milwaukee has clinched the playoffs. We know that. They are 5 games ahead of the Cubs. And the Dodgers are 2 games ahead of the Padres in the National League. Wild card standings looks as the Cubs are 9 games ahead in the wild card. They could find themselves sealing that fate by the end of this week. The Padres, 5 games, same thing. I think they could seal themselves by the beginning of next week, if not the end of this week, depending how other teams turn out. But they're over in New York, and they're playing the Mets, who are right there holding that last seed. Arizona and San Francisco's battling out. I love this battle because, if they play 500 baseball, I tell you, the Reds have that opportunity. Wild card on the outside looking in. Look at this. Arizona's a game and a half. Cincinnati's 2 games. San Francisco's 2 games. And St. Louis 4.5. Cincinnati, your 4 wild card teams on the outside looking in are all playing within 2 games of each other. I'll throw in the Padres and the Mets as a third game. So, I mean, the Reds picked up a victory. Listen, we can cry and whine about the Reds losing, getting swept by the A's. Yeah, listen, I think even the Reds would have told you they should have won. They should have at least took the series, and I would have been fine with that. But they put themselves in a tough position because they should be, honestly, sitting above Arizona, possibly even threatening the Mets at the moment. So here's that picture. If we want Cleveland and the Reds to make it, here's what we have to look out for right now. We want Cleveland to beat Detroit, and we want the Texas Rangers to beat the Astros. We also want the Mariners. We want the Royals to beat the Mariners. So, obviously, Cleveland has to do their job. Then Texas has to do their job, and that's going to leave us into a battle. I say why the Royals need to beat the Mariners, because the Royals are, even though 6.5 games back of the wild card, we can't let the Mariners pick up a winning record in case Houston and Seattle switch spots in the wild card. If you are the Reds, obviously we have to handle business, which this is the scary part right now that I'm dealing with, and I just try to stay as far away of it as possible. The Reds don't play well against their division. I'm scared going into Busch Stadium and playing the Cardinals, no matter where the Cardinals lie, because I just know just how good the Cardinals are against the Reds. But then the rest of this division the rest of the schedule looks. You got 4 this weekend against the Mets, which could be a really big series. You got 3 against Pittsburgh to finish the homestands, and then we go to Milwaukee, and they should be clinching the playoffs, and if not the division by now. So they'll probably be rusting. We'll see what happens there. But we also want the Padres. Now, I know a week, maybe 2 weeks ago, I was kind of hey, the Padres could kind of go on that downhill spiral, and we could even replace them. But 5 games above, I say let the Padres stay in, beat those Mets. Let us replace the Mets in the wild card. And I don't care what happens right now, because San Francisco's behind the Diamondbacks, and the Diamondbacks are a game and a half. I'm going San Francisco for this week right now, because we need, because if we could win and San Francisco wins, it pushes Arizona back with us in this stretch. The other thing to look out for this year is going to probably be home field advantage in the National League, and I was circling this one on my calendar here. This is actually the game 2 of our doubleheader tonight. The Phillies and the Dodgers. Look, both of them are planning. If you're a Padre fan, which I still support the Padres, even though I live in Northern Kentucky, Cincinnati fan now by default of my location. But if I'm the Padres and I'm the fans, I'm rooting for the Phillies. Right? They, win the division. They got really nothing else to fight for, maybe home field advantage. You could expect Philadelphia. You could probably expect Milwaukee, even Chicago, to kind of lighten up. And these are the series that we need to, take advantage of. But Phillies over the Dodgers. So, hey, there's a lot of baseball going on tonight, tomorrow, Wednesday. If you're a baseball fan, that's kind of right up there in the tracks. And yeah, so, but we still have it in. And like I said at the beginning of the program, that tearing, right? Are we, Reds, ones, hey, they had that bad stretch at the beginning of the month. It's like, all right, we're going to count them out. Not yet, because they had a good series against a couple of teams. Then they drop against the Athletics, and now they beat the Cardinals. So, first things first, win each game. I still think, as a fan, whether you're one of these teams on the outside looking in, possibly battling, I think finishing off the season with your head held high and not saying, oh, play the what if game. And what I mean by that is that I would like to see the Reds finish off with 500, playing, with an 82-80 record at least. I would be satisfied if that is. I would be devastated and I would be annoyed. I would be upset if the Reds finish off these next 2 weeks under par and they finish under 500. Because if you finish under 500 from a team who signed Terry Francona at the beginning of the season, we needed that manager. We got that manager, right? We also picked up Key Brian Hayes, and we picked up, Miguel Andujar. We added guys. They're not no Juan Carlos Stantons, sure, but we made improvements. Our best is B+ players, and maybe they're a B-, sure, but we picked them up, and we made that improvement. Management showed us, hey, we are in a contending spot. We want to contend. Here's a couple extra guys that are going to benefit us. And there you go. And to see all that to go to wayside, if you finish off under 500, and I think I've explained this last week, I feel like as ownership, you can go in multiple directions. Well, we tried this. It didn't work. Let's tear it apart. But if you finish above 500, I think there's some promise. First of all, you're finishing above the Pirates and the Cardinals, which is a win. 2, you kept yourself in the postseason hunt up until the very last days of the season, which, hey, you're that close. What do we need to get over that hump would be the question in the offseason. But it gives you some momentum of, hey, we're making the right decisions. We're putting these right guys together, the building chemistry and the winning ball games. Right? That's what you do when you have a winning season. So that's the importance of not just, hey, can we get to a wild card spot, but finishing off the season above 500. And right now, the Reds are just playing 500 baseball, which I get worried about. So we'll have to see. Did anyone play, or is anyone playing picks with me? I haven't gotten a check, but if you want to, when I say about picks, is that we predict who is going to win each week. Last week, I had a total of 13 out of 16 correct. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 plus 8. And page 1, we got 1, 2, 3, 4. So we've got plus 4. So that's 12. I got 12 out of 16 in week 2, which I don't think it's bad at all. But week 2 action in the NFL is complete. Packers beat the Commanders. Bengals pulled away a victory. We'll talk about them here in a moment. Rams won. Baltimore won, beat the Browns 41-14. And what I like though is in the last quarter, it looked like they took out Joe Flacco, not because he, didn't play well, but because there was no point in putting him back out there. You put him out, put a young guy out there. 49ers beat the Saints. Seahawks beat the Steelers, which helps us out. Eagles beat the Chiefs, and the Chargers beat the Raiders, going to 2-0. I looked at week 2 of the NFL, and what I saw was kind of more of a settled down phase. What I mean by that is the teams that you expect to beat other teams succeeded. Packers beat the Commanders. Not saying the Commanders are a bad team, but I think there's been a lot of elevation for the Packers and, heading into the season. Their aggressiveness in week 1 against the Lions just got you right back to where they should be, and they should have won at home, no doubt about it. The Ravens beat the Browns 41-14. Think about that. 41-14. Almost reminds me of a college football game. And you got to admit that's kind of expected. Maybe it could have been more competitive, but as good as the Ravens were, we knew that they were not going to be phased when they lost against the Bills last week. But they showed it. They came back and they showed what they, hey, this is our first home game. Not only are we going to pick up a win, we're going to trample over the Browns. And that's what we did. I think the Ravens kind of reestablished themselves within that week, and we knew they weren't going to be phased at all. Cowboys and Giants were a very close game, went into overtime. The Lions, they had a very tough battle against the Packers back in week 1. They took on the Bears, and in a game that you knew that they were going to win, not only they won, they blew them out 52-21. Just kind of looking over at the other games here. I'm a little bit surprised to see the Broncos start their season off 0-2, but we'll talk about 0-2 teams on a later date, right? Because they lost to the Broncos. Did the Broncos win last week? Yeah, they did. They're 1-1. Excuse me. But the games that you think should have won, teams should have won, they won. Buccaneers beat the Texans. A little surprised about the Chargers beating the Raiders. Eagles and Chiefs was a good game. I took away the Chiefs, and they're coming off. They're heading into week 3 0-2. And I'm not saying that I don't think that the panic button needs to be hit if you're the Chiefs, but you got to come. I think face reality is that you're not the NFL's team anymore. Remember, the Patriots were their dynasty. Chiefs came in, took over a dynasty, and their offense is not the same. Matter of fact, I feel like most of their offense, when your quarterback is leading your rushing yards of per game, I think you've kind of lost your edge. Defense, I think you could put their defense up against anybody, and I still think it's in the top 5. But the Kansas City's offense is going to have to adapt to some changes and to better themselves. Now, I can't phase out the Chiefs. They're 0-2 to begin the year. The Chargers are 2-0, And if you're Kansas City, I'm not there ready to give up on them yet. I still think that Kansas City can come back and be a threat to the league, to the division at least. Even though, the Chargers are trying to prove themselves. This is all that strategy. You get out to an early 2-0, 2-0 record. You have that comfort room because the Chiefs, not only you have a win over the Chiefs, but you are 2 games above the Chiefs. Right? Now the Chargers have a win over the Raiders, and they're 1-1. So, but like I said, maybe if the Chiefs start out 0-4, 0-5, yes. But I still, last year, it was like 2 years ago, I think we talked about it, where the Chiefs could kind of just turn that switch on, especially if they could get themselves into the postseason. The biggest problem that we run into, okay, has to be those Bengals. Given credit, we won. We found a way to win, but we were losing 17-7, I believe, at some point, right? And to the Jaguars, and it was going into half where we were honest. I was honestly scared, but I think Joe Burrow going out, I think changed the dynamic. You bring in Jake Browning. I'm glad we kept Jake Browning. I'm glad that he's the backup quarterback, because there's not a single quarterback out there right now that I look at that say, all right, well, you can hold down the fort for the Bengals. Or you could bring the same level or the same energy or the same chemistry like Joe Burrow and Jamar Chase. Not any quarterback out there in the NFL, other than as close as going to get to Joe Burrow fitting in Cincinnati, other than a Jake Browning. We already know what he's capable of doing. We already know that he could complete games. He had some success a few years ago when he had to finish out the season. The troubling news is it's not so much that Joe Burrow has turf toe. It's more so he's going to require surgery. And now he's planning on missing up to 3 months, that's 12 weeks of football. And I wanted to look at this because I saw this on a video earlier today. And I just wanted to give you that perspective. Okay, what we're looking at here. We have Minnesota, 12 weeks, looks like Minnesota, Denver, Detroit, Green Bay, Pittsburgh, Jets, Chicago, Pittsburgh again, New England, Baltimore, Buffalo, and Baltimore. The 2 toughest parts of our schedule that we are really going to have to play our top tier football that can define if we are capable of making to the postseason or not, are going to be played with Jake Browning. Now, I've heard the conversations. Do we bring in an outside quarterback? What about Kirk Cousins? What about James Winston? I honestly, I don't think we need to bring in another quarterback. I don't feel like that Jake Browning or bringing in a Kirk Cousins or bringing in a Jameis Winston does anything more than what we have with the Bengals and Jake Browning right now. I mean, we did pick up Brett Rippin, a 7-year veteran out of Boise State. I'm like, I don't know who the hell that kid is. But no, look, I don't think that, I think we're perfectly fine with having, Jake Browning as our quarterback. I think he will be the best chemistry. What I liked about, and you can see it on back on Sunday, because Jake Browning, he knew Jamar Chase was getting double teamed. He knew, T. Higgins was going to be limited. And that's what teams are going to do, are going to lemit these, our star players. You tossed it to Noah Fant plenty of times. You tossed it to Gesicki. You got, Tinsley. the ball a few times. Um, you what's so great about putting our backup Jake Browning is that he also knows our backup receivers, our 3-4 guys, the best. And you saw it where he was able to connect. He was also able to run down that ball. It took the Bengals down and score that touchdown in the final drive of the game. And so if there's any confidence out there to put in Jake Browning, I think we do have to put all of our faith into him and trust him. I think he is our quarterback for the next 12 weeks. But I had to agree with this guy because I was looking at the schedule too. And he was saying, great, this is the perks of being 5-2-0 to begin the season. If you want to, so the expectation is Joe Burrow returning after 12 weeks, if everything goes well. That means he would be returning from Miami, Arizona, and Cleveland. So if you want to put the Bengals in a position to be contending for a postseason opportunity at that time, out of the 12 games that Jake Browning is going to have to start, the Bengals are going to have to win at least a minimum of 5. That would give them 7 wins for the last 3 games of the year. Now, and I look at some of this list here. Let's face it, Minnesota hasn't been playing great football. They're 1-1. I think that the table kind of changed a little bit. Maybe 2 weeks ago, you would have asked me who to beat the, one between the Bengals and the Vikings. I would have probably leaned towards the Vikings. I think now we have an entire week for Jake Browning and he knows, it's not a question. He knows he's starting against the Vikings this week. I think we can favor the Vikings. Denver has gone off to a slow start also. So that's another team. The only trouble is that we're at their stadium, right? Detroit, Green Bay is going to be a competitive but challenging, very challenging. I think those 2 games. So, those games I don't think we're winning. And if we could bounce back against Pittsburgh, then great. We haven't had too much success in New York in recent years and Chicago. So we'll obviously have to just wait and see where they're at. New England's opportunity, because that backstretch, Buffalo, Baltimore, man, it's going to be nail biting. But the bottom of the line is that we have Jake Browning. Now, although I'm comfortable with him, it's not like, I feel comfortable in a win. It honestly doesn't really change a whole lot for me, where I'm comfortable or I'm not. But it is a blow to the gut. It sucks. I am glad we're taking care of this now, not in 6 weeks, not in 9 weeks when we have to worry about postseason. So what are we gonna do? 2-0 teams here in the NFL: the Bills, the Bengals, the Colts, and the Chargers. Just 4 of them, 1 in each division. NFC is a little bit different: the Eagles, the Packers, the Bucks, 49ers, Rams, and Cardinals, all on have a 2-0 record. So we'll see how long that lasts. I know there's not a lot of much tell to that. What we can expect in our division upcoming this week, also, we have the Packers and the Browns. Expecting the Packers to win and the Browns to go 0-3. Cincinnati and Minnesota is going to be a now fun, interesting battle. Pittsburgh, New England's another one. Detroit and Baltimore is going to be fun. That's a Monday Night Football game, which I know I have to actually tune in and watch. And I believe starting after week 3, we would have the London series. Thank goodness that we don't have to go to London this year or an international game. So it's been a fulfilled week, a lot of emotional week. We got upset with the Reds because they got swept by the Athletics. We hope that being 2 games out with the Mets playing the Padres right now this week, we hope the Reds can capitalize on a team like the Cardinals and the Pirates in the next 4 series. I even hope that the Reds they have a little bit more sense of urgency and a sense of willing to win and to do it all, because it's a do or die scenario, right? Against the Cubs and Milwaukee, two teams that are kind of more confident into the postseason. They're just looking to, maybe rest some guys, make sure everyone's healthy, as maybe the Cubs have to get ready for a wild card next week, in 2 weeks, compared to Milwaukee has a little bit more time. Like I said, there's a lot of scenarios coming down this week that we have to, I think every team looks into, if this, and this happens, we could be in the postseason. Regardless of that, I still think the importance of finishing a season off 500 or better is crucial for the Reds. It shows the progress being made. So we hope the Reds can take a series, if not sweep the Cardinals, and have success with the Cubs this week. The Bengals, like I said, we know the fate right now. 12 weeks is the minimum time. Doesn't mean Joe Burrow does come back in against Miami. He has the opportunity after he has his turf toe injury. So we do wish him a speedy recovery, absolutely. But we also know that Jake Browning is our starting quarterback, and I'm supportive of that. I don't feel anyone else, any other quarterback, it doesn't matter who you are, can come in and better this squad with the chemistry that Joe Burrow left on the field other than Jake Browning. We've seen it in the past, and I think now, since we know what he's capable of, I think we're capable of expecting a little bit more. So we know we have a tough road ahead of us, but don't rule out the Bengals just yet. And look, you may not like it or not when it comes down, but it is an adapt or die environment. The WWE, at the bottom line, is going to Saudi Arabia for the Royal Rumble next year, and plans on going to Saudi Arabia for WrestleMania 43 in 2027. I say, let's wait and see what happens. I'm curious on whether tickets would be sold outside the country and fans will be allowed to attend on top of the community that arrives in Saudi Arabia every time they go out there. I know this may not sit well with a lot of people, especially talent, but it's important that we have to give it a fair shot. Like Paul Levesque has been preaching, it's a global phenomenon. And this can only lead in hopes to a lot bigger pathways for the future of the WWE. WrestlePalooza is this weekend. I'll try to pull together a match card and get you guys information. The truth, the time for the truth has come out, right? We'll find out this weekend if we can watch it or not, and how hard or how easy it is to get that ESPN subscription. Like I said, expect a lot of baseball games. We got 2 games tonight, 2 more games this weekend. Thursday night football for us. Dolphins, Bills. 2 games on Sunday, and then a Monday night football game between the Lions and the Ravens is expected on our show. We will have NXT SmackDown main event and NXT Spring Break-In as well, expected on our show later this week. And then we'll hopefully come back with our week 3 predictions on Thursday and get you ready for the weekend in the world of sports. That is all the time that I have. That's all the conversation I have. I want to hear your comments in the below section. So feel free, if you guys are watching this on YouTube, or to come on to our YouTube channel, find this video, comment your opinions down below. Maybe they'll pop up on this program. If not, please do me a favor, like, share, and subscribe. Have those notifications turned on so that you don't miss a single episode of when we publish on a weekly basis. So that will conclude this episode's podcast. We want to thank you, and we appreciate your time. I hope you guys have a great rest of your week, and we'll talk to you guys later. Take care.